Dr. Richard Gates, asked the question of you, Mr Carmody, on the 20th of March 2017, why has little headway been made in the last 7 years with regard to public safety zones? It's not a bad question, though, is it?
It's a very good question, Senator, and I don't know the answer. All I can answer and say
if you don't know the answer, who does?
And say that headway has been made now in the
after
NASA
Essendon?
process.
After Essendon?
Well, Senator, my understanding is the work was underway, but
Perhaps if I can ask Ms Spence to give you an update on some of the issues over the last few years, Senator.
Yeah. Senator, we have been progressing this through the National Airport Safety Advisory Group, and it has been a matter where we've had to get agreement with all the states and territories. As Mr Murdoch mentioned, on the 14th of March, members reconfirmed their commitment to developing and implementing the public safety zone guidance for airports. The next meeting of the NASAG is on the 2nd of August, and before that, NASAG members are going to brief their respective ministers on draft public safety zone guidelines, which have been developed by the Commonwealth and the Queensland Government in consultation with the NASAG members. Subject to
are these minutes made public, Ms Spence?
Subject to the ministers' agreement, NASAG will conduct targeted stakeholder consultation with sort of selected airports in the second half of 2017, and then the draft guidelines will be released for wider consultation.
And are these minutes made public?
The minutes of the NASAG, I don't think, are made public.
Is there any reason why they can't be made public?
I'm happy to take those on notice.
Maybe it's a question for the committee whether they want to be made public as well. But if you take them on notice, and if you don't wish to make them public, it could be a question of an order for production of documents. I'll put some questions on notice, Chair.
thanks, Senator.
Just as I pass over, if I might, to Senator Back, who's just got a couple of questions, and then Senator Forsyth.
Just quickly follow up.
Of course.
Mr Murdoch, you're aware we've spoken before about Manual Standards 139, which goes to airport design. The fact that over the years we've seen what have essentially been open spaces for airports with standards put in place that as commercial pressures have built, then that real estate and that airspace has been encroached on right up to, and in some cases I would argue intruding in to the limits that MOS 139 is supposed to put in place. What Senator Xenophon is pointing to, I think, is the fact that if you look at a safety system holistically, a bit like James Reason and his accident causation model, what we're finding is that each of those pieces of Swiss cheese has been thinned to the absolute minimum that is permissible by law, which maximises the chance of an accident by minimising the options for a pilot who has a malfunction in an aircraft. And I guess the request here is that we sit back and look at this holistically, as opposed to saying, yes, they have met this requirement or that requirement, but look at the aggregation of the loss of margin and therefore options for an aircrew member who has an issue with an aircraft that has come about. And public safety zones are but one element of that whole system. And I guess I seek assurance from you, Mr Carmody, that CASA's approach to this, as we have discussed again on multiple occasions, will move beyond the it can be made safe by limiting the operations to this is what an airport is designed to do in terms of the Commonwealth lease, which says it must maintain its existing capacity and have the option to grow capacity, so that CAS will put its hand up and say, if these changes are made for existing or future operations, it will be unsafe, as opposed to saying it can be made safe by limiting operations, which has been the practice in the past. So I'd be seeking that assurance from you that the organisation will change the way it views its role in assessing that aggregation of safety implications.
Senator, I'll certainly look at that. Thank you. And I want to go through. I will need to go through. I understand the logic of the statement you made. I'd like to go back and review how it's actually done, but I understand the point you're making.
Well, I've raised on multiple occasions the example in Archerfield and the realignment and shortening of runways, and the fact that CAS has ticked off on that, and yet as pointed out by the operators there, for them to comply with CAS's requirements in terms of planning for wet runways, climb gradients, factoring that they have to put in they can't comply. Therefore, yes, it can be made safe by having reduced payloads, but that then affects the commercial viability of the operation and flies in the face of the terms of the lease for the airport.
Understood, Senator. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.